You have to fight for it. You have to be an advocate for the change that you want to see in your life. Because there's always going to be someone or someones that are going to come along and tell you it's not a good idea or that you should do it a certain way, their way. Whether they say that explicitly or whether they do it with eye rolls and facial expressions. There's always going to be someone who's going to come along and give you a counterpunch. Welcome to The Onion Peel, a show where we get real, raw, and honest about life. It's a space where authenticity lives and hope resides. The Onion Peel is a place where we peel back the layers of our stories and discover the unexpected flavoring that each one brings. Hey guys, I'm your host and semi-crazy Christian, Angela McConnell. I'm a middle-aged mom of 5 with a dead husband, and I've been through some shit in my life. Now, I'm on a mission to bring hope to the world. So join me as we journey through this onion and find hope in the tears. You ready to peel this thing? Hey guys, welcome to this edition of The Onion Peel. Thanks for being here. Happy you're listening. And hope you're having an all-around just good day, good week. So, happy 20th episode. Yeah, this is the big number 20, which is kind of cool. So if you have followed me thus far, from the bottom of my heart, guys, thank you. Thank you so much for your support and your encouragement. It's really pretty awesome to have number 20 on the books. So I'm just going to be looking into adding a little something to the show for monetization purposes. I've just gotten to the point where, like many, you get a clear picture at this point as to just the amount of time and effort it takes to produce a quality show and how that has had to be fit into your life. And so you just start to decide, what do you want to do going forward? So, with all that being said, I have chosen to try to get some sponsorships. So if you start to hear an ad or two in the show, don't be surprised. Probably won't happen till a few episodes down the road, but just wanted to let you know that that might be coming. And then another thing, just as kind of a side note, is that I did go ahead and now I have a support the show link, which really is nothing more than a donate button. So, hey, if you feel inclined, fabulous. If you don't, fabulous. The important thing is that we just keep hanging out together, guys. That's what really matters. Okay, that's it. Those were the housekeeping updates. Now let's get on to today's topic. Guys, I'm really jazzed about this one. I'm kind of on fire for it, so I'm a little feisty in parts of it. But anyways, I want to talk today about protecting your new beginnings, protecting a change that you want to make in your life that maybe other people in your life don't think that you should be making. And I'll give you an example. So we start this business. I didn't really tell anybody until I actually jumped off the cliff because I knew there'd be too many naysayers. But once I dove in, I was forced to tell at least the people directly around me what my decision moving forward was. And I knew that it wasn't going to be received well, and that skepticism and doubt would be surrounding my decision. Yet, nonetheless, I eventually told them, and no one was really happy for me. Not at all, in fact. I would say the detailed overview of what they thought or felt was that I was not in a healthy emotional state to be able to be making such a decision. And then piggybacking onto that was that I was simply running away from my problems. Yeah, not a lot of actual support, I guess you could say. But this was also a time, like I had mentioned in a previous podcast, that there just wasn't a lot of faith in me as a person, let alone as a mom. At this particular point, I hadn't proven myself to those who needed me to prove myself to. And so everything that I did was scrutinized. Everything. Didn't matter whether it was finances or how I was proceeding in raising the kids or how I shoveled the driveway. It was all looked at through a microscope of scrutiny. Because until I could pass their standard for whatever an emotionally and mentally stable human was in their eyes, which I honestly don't know what that standard was. All I know is that I definitely hadn't achieved it yet. They couldn't relax. They had to run around in fear and be worried that I was further messing things up, specifically the children. And so there was a constant analysis of my behavior. And I only say all that so that you can understand the magnitude of what it was for me to actually open this business in another state. Oh my gosh. Legit, they thought I lost my mind. And see, the problem isn't really that they have an opinion or that they're just trying to look out for me or look out for my children in their minds. The problem with the lack of support and negativity is that you end up walking away with it. Because in my mind, I'm all excited about my future and the kids' future, and I'm super proud of myself for having the courage to do what I just did. And so you're left wondering, wait, how can the people that love me not feel this same way and be happy for me? And so when you see their reaction, then it causes you to pause and you begin to then have self-doubt. So then I'm left walking away with questioning my choices. And then I completely start second guessing myself. Uh-oh, what did I do? Maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe this is going to completely end up in a crash and burn. Gosh, is it too late? Maybe I can get out of it. And see, all double-mindedness does is just create anxiety and worry. It just increases your fear. It doesn't build you up. And you simply can't allow that. That's why I say that sometimes you have to fight for your new beginning, your dreams. You have to fight for it. You have to be an advocate for the change that you want to see in your life. Because there's always going to be someone or someones that are going to come along and tell you it's not a good idea or that you should do it a certain way, their way. Whether they say that explicitly or whether they do it with eye rolls and facial expressions. There's always going to be someone who's going to come along and give you a counterpunch, which is really going to feel like a sucker punch. So you have to keep your fists in front of your face to protect yourself. That's what boundaries are for. And we are going to talk about those here in a minute. So you have to constantly push that negativity and that doubt away from you. You have to be conscious of it and not let it seep into your being. Because otherwise, then the fight is not only about others, the fight then becomes with yourself. You're in the ring, not only fighting your opponent, but the next thing you know, you get a left hook from your own right fist. So you have to block that punch. That's what they call it in boxing, blocking. So right around this time, I had to practice this, and it wasn't easy. There was someone in my life that I was very close to and had been for most of my life. And I just knew that if I told this person what I was doing with this business, they would think I was batshit crazy. And so I didn't tell them for a very long time. And they would ask and want to meet and let's get together. And I just couldn't do it because I knew that the response to the main thing in my life at this particular juncture was not going to be positive. They wouldn't understand. It wasn't even their fault that they couldn't understand. They just couldn't because they haven't experienced what I experienced. So finally one day came and I decided, you know what? I'm going to give them an opportunity. Maybe I have it wrong. Plus, I was so far down the road in my new venture that I pretty much had to tell them because otherwise it was starting to really become a lie through omission. And that's not good for any relationship. So I told them. And it went exactly as I thought it would go, which was basically a whole dissertation on how I was putting too much at risk for me and the kids. And of course, it was phrased in a way that was loving. And I even knew that it was because they cared. But at the end of the day, they didn't support my choice. They wouldn't support my choice. And further conversations after I told them, they didn't want to hear it because it made them too nervous. It made them too afraid. They just wanted me to be what they called smart about my future. And the thing is, that is not what I needed at this point. To hear the disappointment in their voice just completely pulled me down. And I was already fighting to keep my head above water with everything in my life. I already knew what I did was risky. I didn't need to be reminded of it every time I talked to this person. So again, I wanted to sit and be proud of myself for the courage that it took me to venture out into something so out of my comfort zone. And I wanted people around me that were going to support me, to have hope with me in this venture and tell me, man, good job, Ange. Wow. I don't know where this is going to go, but good for you for trying to make a better life for you and the kids. That's the kind of stuff that was going to breathe life into me, not someone else's fear. See, that brings up a really good point that I want to make. It's okay if this person didn't want to agree with what my decision was. I wasn't asking permission. I wasn't even asking for advice. I just was simply sharing a piece of my life with them. And in return, I wanted them to support me, build me up, help me hold the hope. Just get on the ride with me. And I think sometimes that all of us have a hard time deciphering between those two. It's fine if you don't think that my decision was a good one. And you know what? For me personally, you can even express that once. But after that, knowing that this is the path that I've chosen, then you know what? You either get on the damn train with me or I'm leaving your ass at the station. Period. You don't have to agree with someone you care about's decision. You just have to be willing to get on the train with them and travel to their destination. Because once the train has left the station, they need your encouragement. They need your belief in who they are. Doesn't matter that you think that they made a wrong choice. At that point, it doesn't matter. They've made the choice. Just support them. Do what you can now to help them to reach whatever their aspiration is. That's what love looks like. Good or bad, you choose to get on the train and journey with them. Okay, so I bet you're wondering, how did this relationship turn out? Well, in a nutshell, this person isn't in my life anymore. And I find the whole scenario very sad for a lot of different reasons. But the bottom line was that I had to advocate for myself, for my dreams, for what I was choosing to be best for me. And I knew that the way I had to do that was by protecting it. And the only way that you can protect something is by having boundaries, by putting up those gloves and blocking the punch. Boundaries are something I think people in general have an extremely hard time with. And I understand why everyone does. But they're extremely important. You cannot properly protect your dreams or the things that you desire in your life without establishing boundaries. You can't be a warrior without knowing where your territory is. They're what keeps you safe. Quite honestly, what keeps you safe from yourself. Because we all know we're our own worst enemy. But it's the influences of others in our lives that actually derail our train. Because unfortunately, a lot of times we end up giving them our power. Now, usually we don't mean to do this and we do it unknowingly, but we end up giving way too much credibility and power to what other people think, what their opinions of us are. And that is why putting proper safe zones around you is so important to protecting your hopes and dreams. Look, setting boundaries is simply honoring yourself. It allows you to establish your value so that you can stand in the worth of who you are. And that's everything, you guys. That's how you have the confidence to live your life boldly, on purpose. So I guess if you are someone that maybe needs some tips on how to establish boundaries, I would say one of the first things is to allow yourself to matter, to know your worth. Then I would say that being self-aware is the next important thing when you're trying to make a boundary. Self-awareness is something that I'm just a huge believer in. I've talked about it before. You have to know who you are, what makes you tick, what your strengths and weaknesses are, what experiences form your personality. You just have to be tuned in to you. So applying that to establishing a boundary means that when you are talking with someone or spending time with someone that you're in relationship with, what is it that you're feeling? Not just, oh, I feel so insecure when I'm around them. Well, okay, that's a start, but we need to be more specific than that. Do you feel disrespected or devalued? Do you actually feel afraid or uncomfortable? Do you feel guilty? What is it on a consistent basis that when you are with this particular person or group that makes you feel less than what you are? And let me just throw this in as we're talking about this. That doesn't mean that the person that you're with is intending to make you feel that way. We are human beings. We are all flawed. Every single one of us carries hurts and brokenness in us. Now, that being said, it doesn't then mean that you're supposed to put up with bad behavior just because someone's broken. So like anything in life, it's a balance that only you can decide how much grace you are willing to give someone before you've had enough and said, no more. So after self-awareness, I would say once you figure out what it is that you're actually feeling with this person, you need to address it. And this is the hard part. So go slowly with it. Now, addressing it can mean confronting, and you can do that in a very kind and loving way. It can simply just be a discussion or a conversation where you express the things that you want or need or share what it is that is upsetting you. Then there might also be times where you don't feel you actually need to be assertive about it. You simply either leave the room or you come to the realization that there are certain topics of discussion that are just not to be brought up, or you learn that there's certain group dynamics that you just don't include yourself in. Now, I understand that when you're dealing with family, this particular step can be a very difficult one to have to maneuver through. But honestly, in most cases, I hate to say it, is exactly where boundaries need to be established the most predominantly. That's just a little food for thought right there. And then I think just the last little tip that I would give is to just be patient with yourself. If you're not somebody who normally has boundaries and you really would like to try and create them and learn how to do that, just be patient. It's a process, just like everything that you do is. And it's going to take time, but the more that you begin to establish your safe zone, the easier it'll become, and definitely the more natural it'll feel. And then before you know it, you literally won't live your life without them. And so to bring this all back around with my story of my particular person, I had begun to realize that every time I left a conversation with this particular person, I felt scared and I felt hopeless. So I decided that I can't do this anymore because it's dragging me down. And so I did assert myself. And I just kindly expressed that I don't want to talk about the risk of it and the fear of it. I already know all that. I just would really appreciate having this person in my corner to encourage me and have hope with me. Unfortunately, this person was incapable of doing that. Not because they didn't want to, they just couldn't leave their fear-based mindset. And that's okay. They get to be them and I get to be me. But ultimately, I just had to let the relationship kind of drift off into the ozone, and that's where it's been left. Sad, yes, but necessary. I had to choose me. I had to pick what was breathing life into me, not what was sucking air out of me. And I feel completely peaceful and confident in that decision. I'm proud that I gave myself permission to matter, that I honored my value. And the boundaries I set allowed me to do that. Listen, here's the thing. If you don't stand up for you, no one else is going to, number one. And number two, you have to remember that nobody else knows you like you know you. Nobody. So you decide what you want to do and then you stick to it. You advocate for what you want and what you believe is the best choice for you. So you can't allow someone to come in and tell you what you're doing is wrong. It might be wrong for how they view the situation. It might be wrong for them personally. Okay, fair enough. But for goodness sakes, that doesn't mean it's wrong for you. And look, here's another piece to the pie. Being a warrior for yourself, protecting what you feel is important, aka establishing boundaries, requires you to stand your ground. And when you stand your ground, guess what, guys? Sometimes it can be really lonely. And sometimes you might not have anybody supporting you, backing you, or in your corner. You might not have a cheering section. So, go pick up a couple pom-poms and learn a few cheers. You should always be your biggest fan. Whether you have a crowd in the stands behind you or whether you got no one. Guys, let me tell you something. You cheer your own self on. And hey, I'm definitely here in your cheering section, so you can count on me. All right, let's wrap this baby up. So, what are some of the takeaways? Well, the main point that I was trying to express was just that you have to protect the change that you want to see in your life. You have to be a warrior for your dreams. Only you can do that because the bottom line is only you know you best. And the main way to protect these new beginnings is by having boundaries. And the first part to really establishing them is by knowing your value, honoring who you are. From there, you have to be self-observant. When you are interacting in your relationships, you have to try to figure out what is triggering you to feel less than who you are. Then you have to address it. Now, you can do that through a conversation, or you can also choose to not engage in a particular situation, knowing that it's not going to be fruitful. And then lastly, I always say, be patient. Be patient with yourself, be patient with the process, especially if you're new to establishing boundaries. It's going to take some time and some diligence before it starts to feel familiar. Just protect what it is you want, guys. I believe you can't make a wrong choice. Because in the end, did you walk away with new knowledge About yourself, about someone else, about the situation, about life in general? Did you gain wisdom from that experience? Did you walk away changed? Well, to me, that's a success, which means there really can't be a wrong decision. If you've grown and changed, then the world has grown and changed. So, thanks for being with me today. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you. Please reach out if you just want to say hi, have any questions. Love it if you would subscribe, leave me a review, follow me somewhere, doesn't matter where. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever your fancy. And with that, it is time to put this onion back in the bin until we talk again. I hope you all have a totally protected kind of day. See you guys.